Welcome back to Azerbaijan, the land of fire, a country located at the crossroads of Eastern Europe and Western Asia in the South Caucasus region. It's bordered by the Caspian Sea to the east, Russia to the north, Georgia to the northwest, Armenia to the west, and Iran to the south. This strategic position places Azerbaijan between Europe and Asia, with its capital Baku located on the coast of the Caspian Sea. My name is Palabo. Welcome back to Azerbaijan.
This is the Radio Vagabond.
Before you continue, you might want to go back and listen to the first episode from Azerbaijan. Here we took a look at the old town of Baku, but as I also mentioned, this city's got a bit of everything.
Previously on the Radio Vagabond.
Standing at this point and looking upwards towards the flame towers is that you can see Baku contrasting in 600 years. Because down here you see 15th century medieval religious Baku with Persian architecture styles. Further outside you see yellow towers, you see the pink palaces, you see the grey buildings along the pink palaces. That's Imperial Russian time Baku, colonial past and architecture styles of Art Nouveau, Baroque, Neoclassic, Rococo, Moorish. Further outside above the pink palace you see white marble building with pink windows. You see the red roof building on the right side with yellow and white columns, and all high-rise buildings under the slope up to the hill. That's Soviet time Baku with socialist and communist past and architecture styles of a Stalinist empire style and the Soviet modernism. And up into the hill you see flame towers. That's a futuristic 21st century Baku. You see stone Baku and glass and steel Baku. You see grey Baku, blue Baku, old Baku, new Baku. 4 different historical layers over
Baku's skyline has gone through a massive transformation over the last couple of decades. But it wasn't always shiny and futuristic as it is today. If you look at the city before the modern makeover, you'd see a lot of those boring square buildings from the Soviet era. You know the kind, those grey rectangular blocks that looks like they've been designed by someone with a deep love for concrete and a total hatred to creativity. They're still here, and many people still live in them. These buildings serve their purpose, but let's just say that they weren't exactly eye-catching or inspiring. Fast forward to today, and Baku's skyline has been completely reshaped by some truly incredible architecture. Think Dubai meets Singapore in a sci-fi movie. The city now is dominated by sleek, futuristic buildings. You got glass, curves and structures that twist and turn in a way that make you wonder how they even stand up. These modern buildings reflect Azerbaijan's growing wealth and its desire to create an international image as a global modern city. Let's talk about some of the highlights. You got the Haydar Aliyev Center. This building is pure art. It's all smooth, flowing curves and looks more like a giant wave than a building. No sharp angles here. It's as if the whole thing is in motion. Inside it's just as impressive, with massive open spaces and galleries. The building opened in 2012 and today it's used as a cultural center with art galleries, museums and conference spaces that host events and exhibitions. Then there's the Deniz Mall, also a stunning architectural gem on Baku's waterfront. The shape of the roof reminds me a bit of the Sydney Opera House. Its design mimics a giant flower with 8 sections reaching out from a central dome. This modern structure opened in 2020, and with its sleek glass facade and unique shape, it's not just a mall, it's a symbol of the city's blend of nature and modernity. A few other examples: the Crescent Development Project is a tower shaped like a crescent moon on the Baku waterfront, and the Sokar Tower is a building twisting upwards in a spiral form. It's super modern and symbolizes Azerbaijan's status as a major player in the oil and gas industry. The Azerbaijan Carpet Museum is also worth mentioning. It's a striking building designed to look like a rolled-up carpet. That opened in 2014 and celebrates the country's rich tradition with carpet weaving. We actually went inside and saw the exhibition. The unique design perfectly matches its purpose, making it both a cultural landmark and one of Baku's most creative architectural achievements. But if we're talking about modern architecture in Baku, we have to mention the flame towers. You know, the buildings that we talked about in the previous episode that has now taken the spot as the icon of Baku on Azerbaijan travel books and advertising posters. These 3 towers dominate the skyline, and you can't miss them. They're shaped like flames, which ties back to Azerbaijan's nickname, the Land of Fire. During the day, they're gleam with glass facades, but at night, the real magic happens. The towers light up with animated LED designs, turning into giant flames that flicker and glow, making it look like the buildings are actually on fire. It's one of those wow moments when you first see it, and it's really become the icon of modern Baku. The flame towers aren't just functional. They house offices, apartments, and a hotel, so they're not just for show. But really, their impact is mostly visual. Whether you're standing on the promenade of the Caspian Sea or just wandering through Old Town, those flame-shaped towers are always in view, reminding you that Baku is a city where the ancient and the ultra-modern sit side by side.
If you're like me and you're a fan of modern architecture, you should go to the blog post for this episode and see what it looks like. The flame towers are up there on my list among the most iconic buildings I've ever seen, right along Burj Khalifa in Dubai and Marina Sands Hotel in Singapore. You can also follow me on Instagram.
Have you ever wondered what the places in this podcast actually look like? I have. So, I started following the Radio Vagabond on Instagram, simply by searching Radio Vagabond.
Mr. Bond.
Radio Vagabond.
Before we pick up the rental car and head out of the city, a few more words from our local friend Gani that you met in the latest episode. He also mentioned 2 things that used to hold a world record.
I heard that the world's biggest KFC is in Baku.
It used to be in Baku,
Used to be.
No longer. They went bankrupt, so they moved to a much smaller
too big.
place. Yes, and the rentals were high as well, so they can't maintain it with the revenues that they had. So they moved to a smaller place.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago or something like that, so it's no longer in there.
No.
We're going to build the tallest flagpole in the world.
Flagpole?
We used to have it. I think that the tallest one is in the Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's. I wouldn't like
December last
Azerbaijan to be known for such a thing, tallest flagpole. I would like Azerbaijan known for more quality things. Yeah, not just material things like that.
Yeah, Baku used to be the home to the largest KFC in the world. Not in Kentucky, right here in Baku, Azerbaijan. The building, located at Sahil Plaza near Baku's main train station, was originally constructed in the 1920s as a part of the city's railway station complex. In 2013, it was renovated and turned into a KFC restaurant, covering 1,600 square meters. That's 17,000 square feet, and could accommodate up to 300 guests at the same time. But a big place like that has a high rent, especially after having invested around 3 million euros to restore the historic building. You need to sell a lot of greasy chicken with the Colonel's secret recipe to pay for that. So they had to give up, shut down, and move to a more modest location. Another big thing Gani mentioned was the flagpole. Baku proudly held the title of having the tallest flagpole in the world for, a minute and a half. This impressive pole stood at 162 meters, 531 feet tall in National Flag Square by the waterfront. It even snagged the Guinness World Record in 2011. But like all good things, this record was short-lived. Around a year later, Tajikistan got one that was just 3 meters taller. And then in 2014, Jeddah in Saudi Arabia swooped in with a flagpole standing 170 meters, 560 feet, stealing the title away from both of them. Baku's flagpole may no longer be the tallest, but it still stands tall, literally, as an eye-catching landmark to the city's skyline. And hey, A bronze medal isn't bad in a global flagpole showdown, and Ghani claims that they're planning to go in and make one that's even taller to get the title back. Let's see about that. Then we're heading out of the city. We'll be right back. First, I'd like to say a few words about what I do when I'm not doing the Radio Vagabond. As you know, I'm a digital nomad, and what I do is helping companies and individuals start their podcast and keep them podcasting. Are you looking for somebody to make your podcast sound amazing? Then I'm your guy. I produced my first podcast in 2006, and since then I've worked with everyone from solo podcasters to big global brands. You might have heard of Lego. They've trusted me with 16 podcast projects since 2018, including collaborations with companies like Disney, Marvel Studios, and even the Rolling Stones. But you don't need to be a big brand to work with me. I'm passionate about helping all podcasters, whether you're just starting out or leveling up your game. And don't worry about the budget. I work efficiently, saving you time, money, and stress. Let's make some audio magic together. Drop me a line and let's get started. You can see more on my company's website, radioguru.co.uk.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
About an hour's drive south along the coastline, we're going to visit two unique places here in the Land of Fire. These are both things that you should put on your list if you're coming to Azerbaijan.
We're a little bit south of Baku now, in a very, very historical place. Actually, it's an UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's called Gobuzdan Art Rock Cultural Landscape.
If you're up for a trip that combines history, humor, and a bit of what were they thinking, then Gobuzdan Rock Art Cultural Landscape is your spot. Located about an hour south of Baku, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is home to over 6,000 ancient petroglyphs, or stone carvings, that date back more than 40,000 years. We're talking hunting, dancing, animals, and rituals, offering a glimpse into the lives of the prehistoric people. Think of it as the Instagram of the Stone Age, where ancient people decided to leave their mark with, well, let's just say some unique artistic choices. I'm here with my good friend Cynthia.
What's your thoughts?
Unbelievable crossroads of civilization here that I had no idea existed here. This is a country that none of my friends at home have ever heard of, and yet throughout human history this has been a crossroads. And the spot we're standing right now has 6,000 rock carvings, 6,000 petroglyphs, representing every age of human civilization. It's amazing.
Yeah, petroglyphs. It's like a
carving.
Yeah, a cave painting, carving in the rocks. Yeah, and they're from way before BC, and
makes me feel young.
Yeah, and some of it is just after Christ in the Middle Age, and it's a long span.
Correct, all the way up to the Neolithic period here, particularly.
You know so many words. That's why I have you on here.
All right, let's talk about the visualization. So these 6,000 carvings are, it's like being in an outdoor museum. There's these lunar rocks all around, and some natural caves, and some just made of huge boulders that have fallen down. And on the flat surfaces of these rocks, ancient people have carved these amazing drawings that are so well preserved. Mostly we have scenes of hunters, we have scenes of dancers, we have pregnant women.
Now, don't expect delicate Renaissance masterpieces here. No, these carvings feature skinny men with, how do I put this, flagpole-sized manhoods that seem to be a bit over the top, even by ancient standards. And let's not forget the women with large, round bellies, probably representing fertility, or maybe just an ancient version of, I'm really full from that prehistoric KFC, with the mammoth. Either way, these petroglyphs are a blast to interpret.
Yeah, skinny men well-equipped skinny men hunting and apparently hunting naked, it looks like, and then pregnant women.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's a little bit sexist, but we'll forgive them because it was a little before equal rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joking aside, Gobustan is a remarkable window into prehistoric life, showing how our ancestors lived, hunted, dances, and even got artistic in their own way, long before the dawn of civilization. The landscape here is stunning too, scattered with ancient caves that feel like stepping into another world on another planet. Before heading out into the vast, rocky landscape of Gobustan, it's a really great idea to stop by the Gobustan Museum. Trust me, this place will give you the context you need to interpret what you're about to see. And chuckle at.
And one thing we did when we got here was go into the museum, and I don't know what I was expecting, but we're outside, and if this was a little bit more red, it would be like Mars. Imagine Mars and then make it a little bit more tan. And then there's a museum. That was unbelievable.
2 stories, really first-class museum with actual petroglyphs and tons of signage in Azerbaijani and in English. Very, very well organized. Really, I learned a ton.
Yeah, and that's good to do before you go and watch this, because now when we see a camel, we know what it's supposed to look like. So, we learned a lot in the museum, so I highly recommend to do that.
The museum is great, packed with interactive displays that explain the history of the rock carvings, these ancient people who carved them, and how the landscape was formed. You'll learn about the significance of the carvings when you go see those flagpole-sized details and fertility symbols. You can interpret them as prehistoric art rather than just humans having a very creative day.
They're very well preserved, many of them, and it's an amazing location to see these things.
If you visit, bring your imagination and sense of humor, and remember, these carvings weren't meant to be politically correct. It was long before the #MeToo movement, after all. But hey, it's all part of the adventure, and there's no denying that Gobustan gives you a fun, slightly cheeky glimpse into our shared human history.
We've been walking around, and then one of them, the first one, we were not able to see. So as I was having a cup of coffee, Cynthia said, let me just go and have a look at that. And here you are, you called me over. You got one rock in each hand.
This one's heavy.
A heavy one and a
light one.
And a light one, yeah, let me try. Yeah, heavy, yeah. Yeah, I got it, yeah. So?
Now I'm turning around. And what is this?
It is a big rock.
And then it's time for some rock music.
What the hell? How can a rock say like that?
There's little holes in it.
Is it made out? Is it a rock?
It is.
Really?
Yes, it's an ancient musical instrument.
What the? That is so weird. Is it hollow or what is going on?
It's got little teeny holes in it that just allow air to...
Drumming with rocks in Azerbaijan is not something that happens every day.
It's like an ancient musical instrument.
But that's just what we did before moving on to the nearby mud volcanoes.
I still don't understand how a rock can make that sound.
Visiting the Gobustan rock art cultural landscape, still a bit of a mouthful, you'll get a feel of the area's geological wonders. The museum experience really helps you bring the rock carvings to life, giving you a sense of what the area looked like 1,000 years ago. So swing by the museum first. It'll add depth and humor to your adventure and leave you feeling like a true rock art expert. Or at least someone who can spot an ancient over-exaggeration from a mile away. This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world. Hotels25.com.
If travel is your passion and you want escapism while still upholding your work and family responsibilities, you can travel vicariously from the comfort of your own home.
He's the Radio Vagabond. Beats and tales he lays. Spanning continents and cultures, yeah, he's got it made. From the Sahara's dust to neon lit city nights, he spikes his visa spinning global flights.
As we're driving that day, we notice something that makes us feel like we've time traveled back to the Soviet era. Ladas. You know, the old Russian cars. And not just any Ladas. We're talking the kind of old, boxy, clunky Ladas that seem to have more lives than the baddest alley cat. These things are practically indestructible, and they're everywhere, like Azerbaijan's unofficial national vehicle. So why are there a lot of Ladas here? Well, it all goes back to the Soviet days, when Lada was the car to have, whether you liked it or not. These cars were cheap, sturdy, and built to handle just about anything. I remember when I was in Serbia, where there are also a lot of Ladas. My local friend said, "It can go anywhere. You can drive it up a greasy pole." Azerbaijan, also being part of the Soviet Union back then, got flooded with them, and the love for these boxy beauties never really faded. Today, many of these Ladas are, let's say, a bit past their prime, but don't let that fool you. Locals still rely on them. They become sort of a cultural icon, and much like a reliable old pet, these cars just keep going. Sure, they rattle, crack, and sometimes seem like they're held together by sheer willpower and a bit of duct tape, but they have character. Driving a Lada is a must-do experience here. And when we got to the Gubustan mud volcanoes, we were lucky enough to do so. Even though we had a rental car, we weren't able to get into the area on that road. It was down a bumpy dirt road that wasn't fit for a Toyota Corolla. So we had to hire a guy to take us there. And we were smiling from ear to ear when we found out that we had to get into a Lada.
Now we're at the mud volcanoes, and let me see if I can describe what this looks like. You have, in the middle of nowhere, we drove up here with a guide in a Lada on some bad roads, but he drives fast. And we came up here, and there are kind of like a bunch of small mountains, and that is where the mud comes out of the ground. And there's some mud coming up here. Let me see if I can get you some sound for it. Whoa.
Big one.
That is the mud coming out of the ground, and it's not hot, it's cold. And they say that they can be used for curement of a bad knee or something.
The Gubustan mud volcanoes are one of Azerbaijan's most fascinating natural attractions. It's located right next to the Gubustan Rock Art Site, so the trip down from Baku was a 2-for-1. These aren't your typical fiery volcanoes. They bubble up cool, mineral-rich mud instead of lava. Azerbaijan is home to half of the world's mud volcanoes, and Gubustan is a prime spot to witness them in action. These volcanoes gurgle, pop, and occasionally spurt mud into the air, creating a surreal, almost lunar surface. Most of the time the mud quietly bubbles, but on rare occasions they can shoot mud up to 1,000 meters. It's a quirky, messy, and unforgettable experience, perfect for travelers seeking something truly unique. And if you're lucky, you might get a ride on a Lada out there. Just be prepared for that bumpy ride, and if you get a driver like we did, maybe a little Lada rally on the dirt road. In a world filled with sleek modern cars, the Lada is a charming reminder that sometimes the old ways aren't so bad. As long as you don't mind cranking the windows manually and having a speedometer, that's more a suggestion than a reality. Cynthia, who's used to driving some crazy cars back home in Florida, even on racetracks, was in the car with a big smile as she said, This ladder handles better than the best Jeep I've been in. And now she's looking into the possibility of getting one of her own. The most expensive part of that is getting a ladder transported from Azerbaijan to Central Florida. Please let me know if you know how, and I'll pass the message on. And speaking of that, I'd love to hear from you.
Just click on Contact on theradiovagabond.com and fill out the form.
That's all we have time for in this episode, but we have one last episode here from Azerbaijan. And in that one, we're heading north through some candy to the Russian border and almost run out of gas in the middle of nowhere. Plus a traffic accident, a broken arm, and how we flee the country to avoid the police. Now, how's that for a teaser? Make sure that you follow this podcast so you don't miss the next one. My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya!
Radio Vagabond.
Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.